number 17. We are about a fourth of the way, nope, not even. Maybe a sixth or a seventh of the way through the book now. So I'm super excited to get close to a fourth of the way, which would be number 25, but we're gonna slowly work on that. So today we have number 17, and I'm hoping to get through about 3 more, maybe 4. These seem fairly simple. The next ones after this one have 4 rounds, but shouldn't be an issue. And I'm gonna stick with a lighter yarn for this time. I know it's a little harder to see with the dark yarn, but I actually counted and it seems like I have a fairly even amount of snowflakes of each color. And once I get through about maybe half the book, I'd actually like to start laying things out and see how big this is actually going to be. I have about half of them. Yeah, I would say about half of them are blocked now so that they are fairly flat and I can get a good picture of how big this project is actually going to turn out to be. So I'm super excited for that. But for now, let's get back to number 17 here. It is Kossava. So it says, chains and loops decorate this lacy snowflake, which is named for a cold, squally wind that blows from the Danube region, which I have never heard of, but it sounds very cool. So first we are going to start, our foundation ring is going to be a chain 6. And then of course we're going to slip stitch into this first one here. And then for round 1, we are going to chain 3, whoops. And then do 1 double crochet into the ring. So this first chain 3 is going to count as a double crochet. So we technically have 2 on there now. We're going to chain 2. And then again, 2 double crochets. That was 1 and 2. And we're going to repeat that 3 more times here. So chain 2, 2 double crochets into the foundation chain. And chain 2, so that was 1 out of 3. This is going to be our second out of 3. So technically it should be 5 altogether. So let me just count that before I get ourselves confused. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we just need 1 more. So we're going to chain 2, 2 double crochets into the foundation ring. And 2. And now I'm assuming yes, we're going to chain 2 and connect it back with this chain 3 that's acting as our double crochet. So let's just make sure we have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whoops, hang on. Oh, I actually miscounted. So let me see. You should have 6 pairings of double crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm actually missing 1 here. So this is not my last one. I'm going to chain 2 and do the 2 double crochets. So this should be our last pairing of double crochets for this first round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. Now we can chain 2. And we're going to slip stitch into the top of this third one here in the chain that was acting as our double crochet. So I'm just going to slip that through the top here. Always my favorite thing to do. I always somehow manage to split the yarn. Let me see. Nope, of course. Sometimes it's easier if you go through the back loop. You just have to hook on the one. There we go. All right, now I'm going to pull that through and pull that through. Perfect. So that was our round 1. We're going to move on to round 2 now. And this one only has 3. So fairly short little snowflake. We're going to start on round 2. So we are going to chain 1, which she says is going to count as our first single crochet here in the chain. In the round, pardon me. We're going to single crochet into the double crochet. Almost did a double there. So here into the top of this one. And we are going to chain 4 in between each of these. Let me just double check that. Nope, into the chain 2 space. Okay, so we are going to do another single crochet here into this chain space, this chain 2 space. And then we're going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're going to bring that back down here with a single crochet into this chain space again. And we're just going to go do that all the way around. So into the top of these double crochets, we have 1 single crochet per. So that was 1, 2. Perfect. Now again, we're going to be working into the chain space. So that's going to be a single crochet. Now we're going to chain 4 to make our little bump. Come back down. Lock that in with a single crochet. And now we're going to move on again. We have our 2 double crochets, which is going to require 2 single crochets. Oh, I missed it. Give me 1 second. I actually accidentally skipped to the second double crochet there, so let me go back. Perfect. 1 and 2. And we're going to work into the chain 2 space with a single crochet. And again, that was chain 4, 2, 3, and 4. Bring it back down with a chain 1. Now when you work this last chain 1 into the chain 2 space, it's very easy to cover the top of the double crochet, which is what I just did. So you want to be careful. You can just pull it back a little bit, give yourself some space to work into the top of that double crochet there. So we're going to do 2 single crochets across the 2 double crochets again. And now for our chain 2 space, it is a single crochet. We have a chain 4. And bring it back down and lock it in with a single crochet. Perfect. Working across the double crochets again. Just 2 single crochets. Extra single crochet here into the chain space. We're going to chain 4. Making a new chain space basically. Bring it back down into the chain space with a single crochet. And you can see we're almost back at the beginning here. We just have a few more single crochets to go here, so we're gonna do the single crochets into the double crochets, and this is going to be our last chain space that we're working in. So this is a single crochet, chain 4, bring that back down and lock it in with a single crochet. And in the beginning we did a chain 1, which is right here on top of this first double crochet, and then this is a single. So we are just going to slip stitch into this chain 1 here. That's over the top of your first double crochet. And if you're like me, you tend to make that a little too tight, but it looks like I did okay today. So that's just a slip stitch to finish off round 2. And there's just one more round for this snowflake. It's already looking pretty good, actually. Looks fairly similar to another one I did. I actually have quite a few. Right now, a little more than half are actually from some free Pinterest patterns that I found, which they worked out really great. But yeah, it's I definitely have quite a few snowflakes at the moment. But we're going to start with round 3. This is going to be the last one, and it's going to be adding trefoils. So let's go ahead and continue. So we're going to slip stitch into the 2 single crochets. So that is going to be this single crochet here, which is our slip stitch. Sorry, I'm looking through my phone, which is a little tricky to see for slip stitches. There we go. So we're going to slip stitch into this single crochet. Oh my goodness, if I can get it to work for me today. Actually, I think I skipped my chain here. Let me see. Oof, messy today. So I did make my chain 1 too tight in the first round. Let me just fix that and see if I can get my hook through here so that we get off to the right start for round 3. So when you're doing your chains to start, or that are going to act as a single crochet or as a double crochet, you want to make them a little bit looser, which is what I try to do, but my tension tends to be a little tight. So that's why sometimes I have trouble with these. Like right now, if I did a chain 1, this would probably be a little too loose. Something along this line, you just want a little space between your needle so that when you're pulling it through, it's a little bit easier to handle. Okay, so now for round 3, we can slip stitch into these 2 single crochets. So it looks like we're trying to get to this first chain space here. So we're just going to go ahead, slip stitch our way across here. That was 1. This is 2. Okay, and we're going to slip stitch into the chain 4, as I suspected. Perfect. So here I'm going to loosen this up because it's going to be a chain 1. And she says this is going to count as a single crochet. So again, we are going to single crochet into the same point here, into the same chain space. And now we're going to be making the trefoils. So it's going to be chain 6, and all of these trefoils are basically just chains and slip stitches to keep them together and keep them shaped nicely. And now we're going to slip stitch into the 6th from the hook, or the first chain here. I'm going to scoot down, slip stitch, basically just pulling that through. Perfect. Now we're going to chain 8, making the middle of our trefoil. 7, 8, and she says slip stitch into the 8th from the hook. So this is a little different from the last one that we did, where we left the first chain here to connect it back down. So a little different, but same variation. So chain 6 for the 3rd piece of your trefoil. And then we're going to slip stitch into the 6th one from the hook, or the first chain there. And there we have the 3rd piece of our trefoil, and now we're going to connect it back down with 2 single crochets into this chain space. So that's 1 and 2 single crochets. So that is our first trefoil here. And let me just make sure I've got that right. Yep, so they're all just connecting together, and it comes out like this little guy here. So between these guys, we are going to do chain 4s. So we're only working into the little bumps from last time, the chain 4 spaces. We're making chain 4s to connect it to each chain 4 space from the previous row. So we're going to do 2 single crochets. You can see we're just hopping over all of this here, the double crochets and the single crochets into the top of that. So I have my 2 single crochets. Now again, for the trefoil, we're going to chain 6. Slip stitch into the 6th one from the hook. We're going to chain 8. And slip stitch into the 8th one from the hook. And we're going to chain 6. You might be able to hear my wrist popping on that one. You can tell I have it on this hand instead of this one. I tend to have some issues with this left wrist for some reason. It was most likely from my previous job. It's a little funky. It was hurting a little bit earlier, so I decided to put it on this wrist instead of my right, which I should probably just get one for both at this point. Perfect. And now we're finished with our trefoil. We're going to bring it back down into the chain space, and we're going to do 2 single crochets here. So 1 and 2, just building out that space. And there we go. That is our second trefoil. Now hers has less space in between these, but I am following exactly what it says, so you can tell mine is a little more open here, even though I've followed it exactly. But hers tend to be a little, you can see it right here, they're a little bit denser. So I'm not sure if my tension is a little too loose now, but I'm just going to stick with what it's telling me. So if you'd like to change it, you could probably slip stitch it into this single crochet here. I'm kind of liking this. I like the little bit of space in between, but if you'd like to close that to be more like the picture, I think they might be missing a step here. So if you would like to close this, what might help is if you do this third trefoil, this third little picot rather, and slip stitch it into this single crochet before you do these 2 single crochets, that would most likely help kind of close that up. Now, like I said, for this one, I'm not going to worry about it. I kind of like the way it looks, and I'm just going to run with what the written instructions say. So from here, I'm going to do a chain 4, and that's just to connect our chain spaces. We're going to go down into this chain space of 4 from the previous round and do 2 single crochets here. And now we're going to work on our trefoil again. So it's going to be 3 picots. So chain 6, and we're going to slip stitch into the base, into the 6th one from the hook. Perfect. We're going to chain 8. And we're going to slip stitch into the 8th from the hook. Give myself a little more yarn here. And now we're going to do the last part of our trefoil and chain 6 for the last picot. And slip stitch into the 6th from the hook. And from the ones before, if you'd like to slip stitch it into this single crochet here, this would probably give you that closed picot. So I'm just going to, like I said, stick with what the instructions are saying and do 2 single crochets here. If the little space bothers you, feel free to do another slip stitch, an additional one there in the middle. It's definitely not going to hurt anything. It's just going to make it look a little bit more like the picture, which is a little odd because everything so far has been very on point. So I'm not sure if they maybe just missed this or maybe their tension was a little bit tighter than mine. So we're gonna, again, chain 4 to get to the next chain 4 space from the previous round. We're gonna do our 2 single crochets. There we go. And again, we're gonna make this trefoil about halfway through. So chain 6. And for your first picot, slip stitch into the 6th from the hook. Perfect. Our second one is going to be a chain 8. Slip stitch into the 8th from the hook. There we go. We're going to chain 6. And that's our last picot for the trefoil. We're going to slip stitch into the 6th from the hook. Perfect. And we're going to lock that back in to our chain space with 2 single crochets. So that is 1 and 2. And again, we're just working in the chain 4 spaces, so we're going to go ahead and chain 4. There we go. The pattern there is 2 single crochets. That is 2, and then our trefoil. So again, chain 6. Slip stitch into the 6th from the hook here. That's our first picot again, chain 8. There we go, slip stitch into the 8th from the hook. And chain 6 for our last one here. And slip stitch back into here, into the 6th from the hook. Perfect. bring that back down into the chain 4 space here with 2 single crochets. That's 1 and 2. Perfect. We have our last chain 4 space to do, so it's our last picot for this one, and then we are done with this snowflake. So like the rest of them, we're going to chain 4 to reach it. Chain 4, start that chain 4 space with 2 single crochets. Perfect. Now again for our trefoil, we're going to chain 6. We're going to slip stitch here into the 6th from the hook. And that's our first picot there. We're going to chain 8. Oops, hello. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Perfect. You want to slip stitch into the 8th from the hook. And for the last one, we're going to do chain 6. Finish that off with a slip stitch into the 6th from the hook. And you want to turn it just a little bit. Perfect. And we are almost done. We're just going to bring this back down into the chain 4 space and tie it down with a single crochet. And then with our second single crochet here. And we finish off with our connecting. So we're missing a chain 4 here. Oop, gets a little tricky as you get close to the trefoils. You don't want to hook into them when you're not supposed to. There we go. And then as we know, this first one here was our chain acting as a single crochet. So per all the other rounds, we're going to slip stitch into this chain. And I'm watching this through my phone, so it's a little hard to see. And we're going to slip stitch and just double check everything before we cut. That was the end of round 3 and our last round for this snowflake. So I don't mind these little holes here. I definitely think it might be something with the instructions, or like I said, possibly my tension was a little off because in her picture, these are all closed. So I'm quite happy with it. I don't mind this at all. And I think it came out pretty great. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off. Pull that through. And per usual, I won't bother you with weaving in the ends. I will do that later before I block them. So this was number 17. This is called Kossava. I really like it. It's very frilly, it's very cute. And we're gonna move on. I'm gonna switch colors here just to keep everything even. I've been doing a good job so far of having an even amount of different colored. Okay, so I actually ended up messing up number 18. I'm going to stop it here and I'm not really liking, I added an extra loop in the beginning when I wasn't supposed to. So I'm going to go ahead and undo this and redo number 18 in a different live. I'm just going to figure out where I went wrong. I read something wrong and I'm just going to go ahead and undo this one, but I will just leave this video up for number 17, and then next time we will get started with number 18, which is the ice flower, which again I did an additional loop in the first round in the second round, and I just didn't quite like the way it came out. So as you can see, I'm undoing it now. I will cut that out from the video, and I will see you guys next time with number 18 as soon as I reread it and make sure I do it right for you guys, because I don't want to upload that and tell you the wrong thing, and now we have 7 of them. So I will go ahead and recheck the patterns, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're enjoying this. I will catch you in the next one.